Hello and welcome to the only horror podcast on the internet, Dark Screen Society. I'm your host, Brian Fears Ghost, and joining us, we've got Gigi, say hello,
Hello.
Seth,
Morning.
and Chuck.
What's up?
So this episode will be a little different. It's more about, for me and for you, getting to know my co-hosts and you probably me a little bit. So I have a
Aw.
bunch of random questions. They have not seen these questions, so they'll be completely on the spot. So
Oh, blind questions. I love that.
He's like, what's your most
Oh.
traumatic memory?
Ooh.
oh, maybe
What's your
you have some
definition of
questions.
axe wound?
What's your body count? So
I hope these are the questions.
Here we go.
So we will start off with the usual question and see what people have watched this week that they recommend. So we'll go in clockwise. Gigi.
I watched, actually last night, I got to see the Timothy Chalamet in person, even though it was only for like 45 seconds. But I saw his new Bob Dylan movie, A Complete Unknown. I'm embargoed, so I can't say anything, but Timothy Chalamet was there and that was cool. And then I also watched the movie Year 10, which came out on Friday, December 6th.
Banger.
And that was really good. It is a little bit misleading because it says like after the fall of civilization, these people have turned to like cannibalism. There is like zero cannibalism in there. Like you don't, that's just kind of like a a background story. But it was a really great movie. So I recommend everybody to watch it. However, there is no dialogue. So if you're not a fan of no dialogue, you will probably like, I mean, I shouldn't say you probably won't like it because I still think it's very entertaining, but there is literally zero words spoken in here. Like there's no script. So I thought that was good.
Is that a sequel to Year Zero with Jack Black and Michael
Dude.
Cera?
It is.
That
Yeah.
movie's fantastic.
I kept almost calling it Year Zero when I was recording my like horror movies release today because I was like, dude, I love that movie. I saw it in theaters.
Nice. Seth?
I watched quite a bit of things actually this week, but the two that like really stuck out to me were The Brutalist and Nosferatu.
Jealous.
Shut up.
No.
Yeah, sorry guys.
Boo.
So, we'll talk about Nosferatu another time, but The Brutalist is fucking incredible. It has like a limited run right now, but it's a 3-hour movie. There's an intermission. I think it's 3 hours and 35 minutes.
That should be illegal.
I know.
It
I wanna
honestly,
see it so
but it
bad.
doesn't.
That's 3 movies.
It is 3 movies, but there is an intermission that's like 15 minutes long, which I think is part of the 3 hours and 35 minutes. But it doesn't feel like it's 3 hours and 35 minutes, and it's about this person who like survives the Holocaust and is trying to make it in America, and it's like this big American like epic. And like how they like tie the past into the future through like art and architecture is just so cool and unique, and the cinematography is beautiful. Like I highly recommend it.
Who's in that? I don't even know who's in that.
Adrian Brody.
Yep. Adrian Brody. What's her name? She was in Rogue One, and I forgot what's her.
It's
what the
not
actress's
Daisy
name.
Ridley, is it?
No, I can't think of her name. And then
Don't use your phone.
yeah, I'm not using the phone.
Let me see. I'll just use my computer. What's it called? The Brutalist?
Yeah,
The Brutalist, yeah.
Guy Pearce was fucking.
Oh, Felicity Jones.
Yeah, Felicity Jones. She's
Felicity
amazing.
Jones. Okay.
Guy Pearce was unbelievable. Like I would be shocked if he doesn't win supporting actor.
always is.
Yeah, he's
think-
great.
Guy
Yeah.
Pearce rips.
He was like one of the better parts. Him and Adrian Brody, but Guy Pearce was just next level insane in that.
Isn't that like the front runner for Picture of the Year?
Yeah,
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Oh.
it's a really good movie.
They were talking about because Adrian Brody kind of had a fallout with Hollywood, like he was just sick of Hollywood. So he's made a lot of independent produced movies since like the Pianist.
Mhm.
And they were saying about how this was such a triumph because they said it's as epic as The Pianist, which is a bold fucking statement because it's a perfect film. I can't wait to see it.
It's unlike anything I've seen. It is like it's brutal, it's hopeful, it's sad. And like the 3 hours, you don't really feel it, like honestly.
Damn.
I'm gonna lie, I probably will feel all 3 hours of that.
I know. Just kidding.
Fall asleep.
My ADHD just can't. I physically cannot. But that's just me.
Yeah.
I saw
Just kidding.
before we get to you, Chuck, I saw a meme today about somebody that was like, slide in a cashier at the cinema, $20, be like, can you put the subtitles on for me? I'm like, yes. It'd make it so much better if that was subtitles in the cinema.
Oh
Anyway,
my god.
No, I
No.
will say that the subtitles, like half of a complete unknown, it's so hard to understand what's being said because Bob Dylan has a very specific way of talking where it's very like mumbly. And
Yeah.
sometimes where I was like, the fuck is he saying? Like I was like, there was like segments where I was like, no clue, couldn't tell you. Need subtitles for that one.
I love subtitles in the cinema. Like when I went to see Titan and When Evil Lurks, like it's a pleasure to read subtitles in the theater.
Yes.
For me, I would do them on English speaking movies. You know, I would love them.
I do in the house.
Yeah, I'm the same. Since
I don't understand why
Game of
cinemas don't
Thrones
have
changed
that.
it for me.
I think they do have like occasional showings, like accessibility
For
showings.
hearing,
where
yeah.
They do. They have close.
Oh.
Yeah, like some like Dolby Digital. Like they'll have like it's like a 3:30 show, but they definitely do have ones you can go see it in subtitles. They're just at weird times because it's not a lot of people that want to do it. But yeah, since Game of Thrones, like somebody told me, like you really need to turn on the subs, and there's so many lines of dialogue that you cannot decipher or hear in there. It makes the show so much better, and I've been with them ever since. I watched a lot of good shit this week, actually. But if I'm going to highlight, excuse me, my highlights would be there's a short film that's about 16 minutes, 14 minutes long that just premiered on Mubi, M-U-B-I, Mubi service, the one from The Substance.
Mhm.
And it's called Dream Creep. And it is, I gave it 5 stars on Letterboxd. It's an absolute must watch. It's about this guy that wakes up in the middle of the night and his girlfriend's sleeping next to him. And he can hear her talking to him. And he realizes that the voice is coming out of her left ear canal.
Oh, I
and it
fucking hate
turns
that.
out that her ear canal is possessed by this fucking demon. And then it turns into like this Evil Deadish conjuring possession body horror type shit. Like it's fucking wild, but it's legitimately creepy. Like it creeped me out. So fucking good. And
Movies
then
are, movies are free trial as well.
there's a 7 day. Yeah, there's
Oh yeah, there is.
I used mine for The Substance. So I paid the $14 up front and to watch that one short, and I was not upset that I did so, but I went through Mubi's catalog. There's some movie got some shit. There's a bunch of Criterion horror on there. There's tons of award-winning shorts. Like I've been going through it. I also watched Year 10. I'm not going to speak on it because Gigi did. Werewolves was decent and worth the watch, but I watched Carry On last night, and I can't deeply speak about it. But I promise you that it's the Christmas movie that you didn't know that you needed. And if you can suspend any reality going into it, like it's like Armageddon. Like if you could just accept the fact that their oil guy's going to drill a hole in a fucking asteroid and go along for the ride, then you're good to go, because it's just it's a fucking blast. And I need a Jason Bateman villain horror movie more than I've ever needed it, to the point that I would love to see him play Freddy Krueger. Like
he's awesome.
He is vicious in this movie, but he's Jason Bateman. So he's like got that, like just that real right. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I love Jason Bateman. I have such a Hollywood crush on him.
Right, where he's almost like super, like it's very Heretic Hugh Grant. This
yes, he's like, charming but evil.
He is. He enchants you, but he's talking about blowing up.
He's handsome. He's perfect. He's smart.
Yeah, and he's talking about blowing up little kids on a plane. Like, and it sounds
a joke.
Yeah, and he makes it sound like fucking wonderful. It was so good. I was so impressed by it. I loved it.
Can I just check? Because is it Carry On, like 2 words, or Carry in 1 word?
Carry dash on.
Okay, perfect.
And Taron Egerton obviously does no fucking wrong. He's fantastic in it.
Oh, it's that movie. I did see you sharing that poster. Okay.
Yeah, it's got a lot of great reviews. I've seen several people talk about like how great it is.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. Loved it.
Nice. I'll check that out. I watched a lot of stuff because I was trying to watch stuff for lists after Chuck's inspiring. Like, lists do really well on for content. So I was like, okay, I need to try and watch stuff that other people haven't. So probably the best thing I watched was a film called The Last Winter, which is very similar to The Thing, but different enough that because it's in a snowy remote location where people are trying to drill. So it's like, okay, it's isolated. It's directed by Larry Fessenden, I think that's his name.
Oh, Larry
Oh.
Fassbender. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
Yes,
he's
yes.
fucking great.
Yeah, so like, and it's just like loads of really recognizable faces. Ron Perlman's in it, and a couple other people. But I love movies where people start going slowly insane in wilderness. It's just something about that. They've got nowhere they can run to. So yeah, I would definitely recommend checking out. It's almost a Wendigo film. Almost.
Did Larry direct
Ooh.
it or he was in it?
He directed it.
Okay, he directed. So he was not in the film.
He's got a slight cameo in it, but
Does he go out in an ultra brutal way? Because that's like his thing.
Yeah, you don't see a lot, but yeah,
fair enough. Okay, that's right, but that's so him. He goes out, he gets it bad. He's like the adult Justin Long.
Oh, I love that.
Mm-hmm.
You said the adult Justin Long, like Justin Long isn't an adult.
No, but Larry's
Child.
he's got to be in his 60s, mid 60s probably.
No, I know. I just forever think of Justin Long as like this 18-year-old in Jeepers Creepers, so I totally understand.
He's always going to be that to us. So.
Like he's just like a teenager.
Yeah.
Okay, so to get into, I was going to say into the meat, but there is no meat here. It's just a bunch of random stuff. So get into the buffet, I suppose.
The buffet.
Yeah.
Smorgasbord.
I love it.
My first question, I was like, I want to ask this quite a lot, but content creation. We've had comments on our Instagram about people asking about content creation and like how to get it and all these things. So I thought this could be our chance to talk about it. So my first question is, why did you get into doing this? Like, what was your reasoning for it behind it? I know we're not all horror. I know, Seth, you look at more movies wide, but the three of us are mostly focused on horror. So what was your reasoning behind that? And I'll start with Seth.
Oh, cool. So during COVID, I went to Hawaii for like a month because I worked from home out there. Because our boss was like, you can work from anywhere. And when I got back and like towards the end of the trip, I was like, what do I want to do with my life after this trip? Like, I'm just going to go back to my apartment and sit there every single day and just like work my 9 to 5. And I was like, I always love movies. People always ask me for like recommendations and things like that. And then I was like, you know what? I'm going to start reviewing movies. I feel like that would be like a fun outlet to keep me preoccupied and like keep me going instead of just being bored all the time and playing video games. So I started doing reviews, and then I applied as press to Fantastic Fest later that year. And they approved it, which I like never thought would be a thing at all. And what I really learned about that is, I think as you all know, Francis was my first ever interview, Francis Galuppi, for Last Stop in Yuma County there. And when I interviewed him, something just like clicked in my brain that I was just like, wait, this is actually what I want to do. Like, I love talking about movies. I love picking like the director's brains and the actor's brains and learning more about it. And so I was like, how can I make that my whole thing? And so I've kind of pivoted from just like normal, content creation, like doing movie reviews, to that, where it's like I'm thinking bigger picture, where like I want to be a journalist, I want to be a critic, and I want to interview talent whenever I can, because it just like, I don't know, it just incites a reaction out of me that just brings me so much joy. And I've loved it ever since, and I haven't turned back. And shit, I mean, we all got approved for South by Southwest this year, so like I never would have thought half of this would be a reality.
I love that you love interviewing.
I can't think of anything worse.
I'm too nervous.
Yeah, I'm like,
He's such a
I don't know what to ask you.
Yeah.
He's so natural at it. Like, it's just the way that it flows and the way that you interact, like your genuine nature comes through your verbiage, and people just accept you immediately because you're easily one of the most lovable people on earth. So like,
Yeah.
you're meant for what you're doing.
Yeah, you come up with really good questions. That's always my fear with interviewing, is that like it's not even really that I'm nervous. It's more so I'm nervous that I'm not going to ask good, really insightful questions, and you're really good at asking insightful questions. I'm always like, this is going to be the same question they've heard 1,000 times.
It's funny you say that too, because like that's also like what gives me the highs, like them saying like, oh, nobody's asked me this yet today, or like this is a great question, and I feel like that's like a reassurance to me, or like something that like I never had growing up. So it's like,
oh, it's like validation.
It's validation. So like I think that's also why I really, really like that.
Oh,
I really enjoyed when we were in Texas and you would be like, Brian, speaking to Stuart Ortiz, you got any grave encounter questions? Making up questions, a lot of fun. Being able to ask them, no thank you. You can do that. I'll help with questions, but you can ask them. Chuck.
Yes, sir.
What was your reasoning for becoming a content creator?
My reasoning for even starting what I was doing is I had a lot of friends, my people, just my whole entire life. I'm the kind of person that, like, do you know who Luis Guzman is?
Yes.
No.
Did you ever see
Yeah.
Carlito's Way?
Oh yeah.
You definitely know who
yeah,
definitely know
yeah,
who he is.
yeah. You know who Luis Guzman is. He was Pachanga. He was his bodyguard, Al Pacino's bodyguard in Carlito's Way.
Oh,
But like,
yes. I know who he is.
he was, yeah, he was in We Are the Millers. He was the
Yeah.
cop on the side of the road. Like, I love him. I think he's one of the most underrated actors ever. I literally know everything he was in. Like, I retain information like that. Like, for an actor that a lot of people don't even know who they are. So I've always retained information like that about movies. Like, that's when I started creating. Like, I started as horror, and then I questioned myself, like, can I do horror content for a year straight? And I started doing other movies because I fully believe I'd be in the same position if I did regular movies or if I did horror, because I just love fucking movies. But horror's where my heart's at. And people told me my whole life, why don't you do something with all this, useless information you have about all these movies? And I watched people, like, and I'll say it, and I have video evidence of it. Like, I had a TikTok where I was Apple user 968422811, and I had no profile picture, and I used to watch content. But I watched Stony the Great, and I watched Horror Chronicles Sydney, and I watched Ricky. And one day I woke up, created an account, and I posted a fucking video. I mean, that's literally all there was to it. And like, then I got feedback, and now I'm obsessed. So I don't know, that's why I do it. Like, I love film and I love horror movies, and I think love horror because I like to be scared, and I just love horror movies. But I think the independence of horror is what I love the most. Like, there's more independent horror movies per year than any other genre. And if I can play a part in helping an independent film and a director's dream catch just a little bit of shine and light that they might get a big project, like, that means more to me than anything. So like, now it's like a service that, like, it's like a giving back. You've entertained me for all these years, and now I have a place in being able to, like, give back to what has given me so much.
I love that.
Yeah, when I first stumbled across you, 'cause, like, you are like constantly in my recommended on TikTok. Every third video was Chuck, like, I'm Chuck, and but it was movies. Then you were kind of focused on, and obviously you pivoted more to horror, because I think it was probably movies. Then it went disturbing, and then you kind of stayed in horror and disturbing. And I was like, okay, and that's when, like, I started following you when you weren't just movies, you were more horror. But anyway, I was going to ask you questions about were you movies in the past, but you just answered that anyway. So
I did want to say real quick
hands up.
that I think too, the horror community is unlike anything I've really, like, ever been a part of. Like, they're so welcoming. Like, I interviewed Steven for Werewolves the other day, and he even said, like, he loves making horror because the horror community is so welcoming, and like, it's unlike anything else, and it's so supportive. And like, even though I review everything, I feel like the closest with the horror community, and I think it speaks volumes to, like, just how great it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
agreed.
100%. I started content creating. I've always loved movies and stuff when, like, I've always specifically loved horror though, because my mom is a huge horror fan. She's a really big Halloween fan. And so, like, we just grew up with, like, Halloween was like the holiday. She always, like, let us watch, my mom and my dad let us watch whatever horror movie, like, we wanted, because, like, those were the kinds of movies that they liked to watch too. But my parents have always been divorced since I was a little kid, and so that was kind of our way of bonding, where it was like my mom and my cousins would have movie nights, and she'd let us watch scary movies. And then when we would go to my dad's on the weekend, his thing that he did with us was bring us to the drive-ins. And so I have so many core memories of going to the drive-ins, and like I remember seeing, like, The First Omen, I remember seeing Freddy versus Jason, and like all these things at the drive-ins. And so that, like, sparked my love of movies, but specifically horror. And then as I got, like, older and, like, wanted to be more creative, I started on Twitch, and I would do, like, horror games and stuff. But then I did a lot of, like, true crime. Like, I loved to just, like, give information and talk about, like, true crime. But then I just didn't really feel connected to that. I didn't feel like I brought a lot to, like, the true crime community, because you are telling stories about people's, like, real horrific things, and I just felt kind of icky about it. So I stopped doing that, and I was like, okay, well, what outlet? I still want to talk about the things that I love, like horror and like, macabre or stuff like that. And so I like tried on Instagram, but then I feel like the people that I found and followed were more so like very like alt or goth, and I really wasn't that. And so I felt kind of like not outcasted, but I just didn't feel like I fit in. So I was almost trying to like morph my personality to like, okay, let me be like Halloween 365, let me be like goth or like alt or something. But then I started just posting reviews on TikTok because I was like, well, I'm watching these movies anyway, so let me just tell people how I feel about them. And then from there, that's when I was like, oh, there's a ton of people like me, like that love horror, that just like live everyday normal, like not normal lives, but aren't in this like, where you're like pigeonholing yourself into a certain like image or a certain like, look or something. And so that's kind of why I started it and why I just continued doing it because I found my little family.
I think it's a good thing, like yourself sitting in that, because there's probably a lot of female horror fans that don't have people to like maybe speak to about it. So then they see, oh, these people seem normal and they also like horror, so they're drawn to me. So it's good that there's such an avenue for you and all the other female creators are out there as well. Like you can see it
Yeah.
with the fan base. It's good. Well,
Why'd you start, Brian?
Yes, Brian.
so I've always wanted to do something content wise. But then during the pandemic, it was like, I finally found out why I had no motivation. It's because I've got ADHD. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. Could have told me a bit earlier. But
Oh, cool. I'm mentally ill.
yeah, I was like, cool. So this is because obviously a side effect of, at least for me with ADHD, is like rejection sensitive dysphoria. So I will not put myself forward for things because I'm like, people are going to hate me. Even though they might not, I'm like, I can't do it because one nasty comment, I'll just delete all my channels and everything. And then I got on Zoloft again, another shout out to Zoloft.
Woo!
And I was like, I started to be like, I don't really care what people think. I'm just going to make a video. And then like it wasn't great, but I want to talk about like bad movies. I didn't want to talk about like the popular things because I liked watching guys on YouTube that'll watch 80s movies that are just so cheesy and awful. I was like, I'm going to do something like that, but on TikTok. And then I did a couple of shark movies that nobody watched. And I was like, okay, so I need to go into more popular stuff to get views. I kind of sold out a little bit. But then that was like once I started to get like community and speaking to you guys, I was like, cool, I can just talk about some random found footage film that 2 people will watch, but it doesn't matter because some people will still watch that video and be like, oh. So yeah, I don't know. Like, I just don't see myself like as a content creator yet, even though like I'm on all the platforms trying to make content.
You are.
You're 100% a content creator.
Yeah.
Yes. 1,000% you are.
Doesn't feel real. Like, I think because I come from a small town in Scotland, I could walk around Scotland and not be recognised, which doesn't feel so. It still doesn't feel real. Even if I go to a horror convention here, I could probably walk around and not get recognised. But I think I've got a bigger audience in America, so that may be why. But
Yeah.
anyway, okay. What's been your biggest moment that's not Texas so far as a content creator? Because he seems really excited about it, we'll start with Chuck.
Wow.
I know, it's only one moment.
One moment.
Yep.
One biggest moment
From content creation. Something that's happened to you from content.
Not Texas.
No.
Holy fuck.
For our listeners, Texas is like when we got accepted into press as for Fantastic Fest.
And we all met for the first time.
Yes, and we all met for the first time.
The biggest moment for me over everything,
Anything.
Yeah.
I think the biggest moment that I had creating content was from Ricky. If I'm being dead serious. And
Ricky 666?
Yes, and I might cry because I had 556 followers, and I woke up one day and there was a video about me from Ricky. And I didn't know him. I didn't talk to him. He interacted on a couple comments here and there. But he made this whole ass video about me and said, I think this is a content creator that has something that you should pay attention to. And that's for a lot of reasons. That's my biggest moment. It gave me, he was like my fucking idol. You know what I mean? Like I like know his verbiage inside and out and watched all his videos, and to hear him talk about me in such a bright light, was a sense of validation that I didn't know that I needed. And that is where the spark, like, because up until that point, I was wishy-washy. I didn't know exactly what I was going to do. I was still experimenting in my infancy. But that was the moment that lit the spark. That's when the obsession came in, a 3 to 5 a day, and go, I mean, like from that, I have not looked back since that moment. I probably gained like 1,100 followers or something from his post that he made, which I'm eternally grateful for. But to be recognized and mentioned by somebody that you respect so highly that early, I don't, yeah, that, I wouldn't have had the moments of meeting you guys in person. I wouldn't have met Mike Flanagan. I wouldn't have, done anything in Texas or got accepted as press or talked to the Shutter people. I mean, I got some fucking motherfucking moments, better believe that. But none of them would have happened if I wouldn't have woke up that day and seen that post, because that's really what pushed me. I just talked to him this morning. Like, I love him to death, and we become very, very good friends. And, Chuck the Movie Guy exists partly because of Ricky 666, which is pretty fucking cool.
That's so sweet. I had to
sorry to get emotional. I'm an emotional guy.
My whole point of doing this is like, I wonder if I can make Chuck cry during this episode. So,
it might happen. We'll see.
Not me. I'm stone cold.
Some of these questions are coming up. Seth.
The Twisters premiere. I would have never in a million years thought I'd be on a red carpet getting to talk to like Glenn Powell, sniffing Glenn Powell, having my name on the ground, like a spot for me, and then like going to the premiere, and then like getting invited to like Universal's backlot the next day to do like a junket. Like, I didn't even know any of that was possible. And like, I like almost broke down there. I was like, I'm actually like doing this thing. Like, I didn't even like think this was a thing. And I don't know, I'm grateful for Francis, because if I never did that first interview with him, I don't think I'd be where I'm at today. And like, I don't know, that Twisters premiere was such a cool experience, and I want to keep doing it.
That's awesome.
You will as well.
Oh yeah.
And Francis is, shout out to Francis.
Yeah.
Scaluppi, awesome. Director of Last Stop at Yuma County, which I should be getting my VHS any day now.
It's pretty cool.
And Gigi, yours will be hardest, I think.
God, I don't know. To be honest, there are a lot of like moments that were really that really solidified it. But I will say, and I hope this doesn't come off as like superficial, but I will say that I think my biggest moment was when I landed my first sponsored post, which was with Universal Pictures for Abigail, because I was like, oh, people see me as a content creator. Like, I wasn't just like somebody posting, like here and there. I was like, oh, this is what I want to do. I want to be able to have a income doing what I love doing, but promoting the things that I actually do feel passionate about. It's not like I'm, accepting shit to just like blast out there that it's not good, but it's like, I was like, oh, okay, this is like, this can be a job. So I think that was like the biggest moment for me.
It's awesome.
Mine is probably a little bit more laid back than all yours, but I've been watching Shudder for years and years since it launched, and I was always like, it'd be cool if I could just get on Shudder's radar, and then getting a screener for one of their movies with my name on the screen, so I can.
It's awesome.
Somebody else.
Yeah.
I was just like, well, I can't even take a picture of it because I think that's probably against the rules. But I was like, it's such a good feeling.
But you did, didn't you?
No, I definitely wouldn't. Never.
I never did that.
I did it yesterday. Yeah.
It'll never get old. Your name on a screener awesome. Will never get old. Yeah.
Feels so good. Okay. That was kind of positive, so let's go slightly negative. What is the worst thing about content creating? I'll go with Gigi, Billy.
Oh yeah, I got it right here. Boom. The worst thing about content creating is feeling like you don't have a good work-life balance. I feel like if I'm not creating content, that I'm useless and that I'm wasting my time. And it's like a constant battle in your head that you have to be like, it's okay to just do things for you. It's okay to watch a movie and not put a review out. It's okay to not watch a movie for a whole week and go out with your friends. It's okay. It's totally okay. You are a normal person, and you can't live and breathe content creating. Otherwise, it will be insufferable and make you miserable. And in the first half of the year, it was really hard for me to not do that. I literally felt useless if I wasn't creating content. And I still grapple with that. Like if I'm having a day where I don't want to create content, like I don't feel like being on camera because I'm having like a self-conscious day, or I just don't feel in it and I don't feel like I can, actually be motivated to like put out a good review. I just won't, and I still grapple with those like negative thoughts, but I've given myself a lot of grace. And one thing that helped me was like listen to other like big creators, or like big just like people like big in the industry, where they're like, you can't be creative 24/7. Like you need rest. And I always tell people my biggest piece of advice is that rest is productive. If you aren't resting, you cannot be your tip top, shape, and you can't like give your best. So rest is productive. And it's like an affirmation I tell myself every single day. So that's the hardest.
Yeah, no, I agree. That's good because I think a lot of people would ask us, because you do feel scared to take a break, because you're like, what
Yeah.
if suddenly someone else swoops in and folk are watching their videos instead of my videos now? And it doesn't happen that way. Like burnout is very, very real. I think we've all gone through it. So yeah, if you are a creator, you can take time off. It's okay.
Yeah. My question that I always ask my partner, I'm always like, am I a flop? I always say that. Am I a flop? Of course he says yes, but
Yes.
That hits hard.
And
Like,
we'll go on to Chuck, the man that makes like 5 videos a day.
yeah,
feel
what the
all right.
Never
fuck?
taking a day off. What's the
Yeah.
hardest thing so far for you?
I haven't missed a day in 15 and a half months. Not
Oh my
one.
God.
That's
Not-
insane.
Not I haven't missed one day. And I don't say that like because I'm proud of it. I am so hyper fixated on momentum. And this is the first time I'll like freely admit that to a public audience. But like, it's what I got. Like, this is like, I've been through some shit in life. Like after that divorce and everything that I went through in life, and like life was at a point that if I didn't have my kids, I'd have jumped off a bridge. Not like it would have been in spectacular fashion, because people were gonna remember me. Like, I'm sick in the head sometimes, but life had gotten to that point where I had no purpose, and I didn't, I had everything, all these eggs in this basket. And when you have your eggs in this basket, and you have the family, and you have the white picket fence, and you have everything that you dreamed about, and that gets obliterated into 100 million pieces, and your life is fucking destroyed, and you have like you're just a ship floating in the ocean with there's a hole in the sail, the wind's just pushing you around, and you don't have any set course for where you're supposed to be or what you're supposed to do. And like, that's a point of life that I was at. Like, and obviously as somebody that's, a recovering person and a mental health advocate, like I have a lot of other things that play into that. So when it caught something, it gave me purpose. It gave me validation, and that became obsession. But I'll tell you what, the first time that, like with what Gigi said, the first time that I was able to say, fuck it, I'm going to fucking take a nap. I'm not putting this 2:30 video out today. Like, fuck it. I'm just going to take feels so goddamn good, because it's almost like taking a piece of your life back. Cause like, I don't think these people that get in your comments and they say all this horrible shit to you and everything that you do, and they just look at you as somebody that makes stupid little videos. I don't think people will ever understand the effort and the time that is committed to creating content. Like, yes. I mean, there's, I did a Santa Claus video about Santa Claus being a serial killer the other day. And like, it took me, it was 3 fucking hours. I did that video with the editing and this, clipping shit from the internet and doing like that's work, it's a lot of fucking work. And I don't think people understand that. But that did not answer Brian's question. And that was just basically feeding. And I'm sorry, I didn't mean to ramble, but I think the worst thing for me is the people. And I say that because it takes a second to really realize that not everybody is out for your own interests, and people will leech off of you and use you and try to use your platform and suck you dry and copy your content and steal your ideas and do all these things. And it's like, you just want to see, like, I'm a half glass full guy. I want to see good in everybody, but I've learned some very, very brutally hard lessons about certain individuals that tried to befriend me or I thought were different people that were like wolves in sheep's clothing. And I think that, the realness of the humanity that not everybody's a good person is probably the toughest thing for my whole journey.
Because everybody's wondering, he's talking about me. Steph.
I think for me personally is I don't know, like, I think it's just the toll it takes on your like mental health. It's not something that like a lot of people really talk about. But like working a 9 to 5 and then trying to like do a video and editing it for the next like 3 hours, it's just like it all kind of like weighs on you. And then you have these numbers that you're always comparing yourself against to. I think that has been my biggest challenge because it's like I know like deep down that like I like what I do, but like do other people like my stuff? And that's always in the back of
Oh
my
yeah.
head. And it's like that just like it kind of just weighs on you and eats at you. And like I think that's just the biggest thing that not a lot of people talk about is that it can be very detrimental to your mental health because you kind of go down this rabbit hole where it's like, oh, maybe my content does suck, maybe I'm worthless, maybe nobody does actually give a shit about these interviews that I'm posting. And then you get in your head, and then next thing you know, it's 5 o'clock at night, you haven't posted, and then you're like, well, do I still want to post? Like, is it even worth it? Like, is anybody gonna watch it? And I think that's been the hardest thing is like, and I don't even care, like people will comment and say some hilarious shit to me, like tell me to kill myself, and I think that stuff is hilarious. It's more so like the other thing is like, if I don't have a following, like, is it even worth it? You kind of are like put against a number and you like feel like you're a number in this like whole scheme of things. And that has always been something like it's hard to like get over.
I think that's so fair, Seth, because I think a piece of advice that always kind of like irks me, but I get why people say it. But at the same time, there's always this counter argument because people are like, well, it doesn't matter about like numbers and blah, blah, blah. Like you have to put out what you enjoy. But it's like, well, that's only so true because if it's not what people want to digest, I'm a content creator. Like, you know what
Yeah.
I mean?
Right.
I am creating content for the
It's-
people. So it's like, I could fucking love it, but if they hate it, I
Yeah.
can't keep creating it. So
Mhm.
I totally understand that. I don't know why that piece of advice always irks me where I'm like, that's not that true.
No.
You know?
It's not true at all.
Yeah.
Because then you go down a rabbit hole too, where it's like, well, I am creating the content I create, but like nobody's watching it, so what's the fucking point?
So like,
So it's
yeah, like I obviously like, yes, you have to create the content you like, but
yeah,
there's still where you have to navigate finding what you like versus what the people actually want to listen to. So
mhm.
it's not as, easy said as done. So
No.
yeah, I totally get that.
No, I agree. Mine is similar, whereas like comparison or comparing with other people because it's easy enough to say to somebody because like we guys have probably all done it. Like, don't compare yourself to those kind of numbers. But I'll use an example that's not a real example, but I don't want to use the real example because somebody might get a big head. But when Marcel found milk and cereal, and then he said you can talk about it, and other creators started making videos about it, and they were getting like millions of views. Mine got like 6,000 views, and I was like, why is like I'm the one that technically brought it there? Why am I not getting the views? And I'm like, but that's not how it works because like these people are all like, thanks to Brian for this, and I still got fallout from it. But then I got really in my head about like why are their videos like what are they doing differently in their video that I'm not doing? And it's so like it's such a bad way to think about things because then
Yeah.
you're trying to change yourself to be like that person, and
Mhm.
it's not genuine anymore. And yeah, comparing people is hard. I find.
It is.
It is.
It is really hard, especially when you're in your niche of what we're doing, where it's like, well, I literally made a video about this exact movie. Why weren't people as tuned into mine as they were on this person's? So I totally get that because I think in some platforms it's a little different where you're like, it's where it's like you're doing your own thing. It's not like the exact same movie or like so it's like I think it's a lot. No, I shouldn't say because it sounds very egocentric, but in my brain, I feel like it's so much easier for us to compare ourselves to other content creators because there are sometimes where we literally cover the same movies. So it's like, why is theirs doing better? So I get that.
But you can't help it. Like I think it's human nature to compare.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It's what you compartmentalize and what you do with that information after the comparison, which is very difficult to navigate. Like because it's always been nobody wants to be a number, but you have to have goals and you have to strive. And like, I love all you guys, but like, I look at everybody's numbers, like, and I want to beat you. Like, it's just the fucking way that it is. You know what I mean? Like, I want to be better. Like, I want to be the biggest. And like, that's a dangerous place to be sometimes, because it does cost you sleep, and it costs, it's not easy. And you can talk about things you want and be happy. And just like you said, Gigi, if nobody's watching it, what the fuck is the point? You know what I mean? Like, you have to format what you love into a digestible thing. You're not talking to one person, you're talking to potentially millions of people. So you have to, that's where the creator part comes in, because you can have fun, but you have to have the way to put a spin on it that people find what you're talking about interesting. That's where the creator part comes in. So it's not easy.
Yeah. What were we going to say, Seth?
I was gonna say too, like, especially for like what I want to do with like interviewing people, like I'll be on a red carpet and somebody will ask some like heinous questions to these people, and I'm just like, how are these people getting these like types of interviews? It's like, I don't want to like stoop to that level and ask somebody like, oh, how does Glenn Powell smell? Or like, like if you could pick somebody to play Twisters with from the Twisters cast, who would it be? Like, to ask questions like that, I feel like that's just so inappropriate. It's like, but those are the things that like PR companies are looking for, like the one guy who randomly sings to people on sets. Like,
what?
Oh, you haven't heard about that?
Yeah,
No.
You haven't seen that?
You'll definitely have seen him.
He literally will just randomly sing. But it's like things like that. It's like, how do I, like,
it's just it's perspective, Seth, because like when you stood there and you seen those people ask those questions, they stood exactly where you stood. They just got to the point that they're at through their own individual time and effort to get to that point to ask that stupid question on a bigger stage. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But like, they, at one point in time, like I guarantee Cinema Joe at one point in his career stood at the end of a line, thought about, why does this dude get to ask this question and take over this whole thing and ask 5 questions and I get 4 seconds? Like, that dude stood, and I respect that, because he stood in that spot and he got, you know what? He got up the next day and he made a review and he put out a video until his thing like caught on, you know what I mean? Yep. So like, and that's what's happening for you. And this is what I think a lot of people, like our listeners, so you guys understand this. Like, if you go look at Seth's page, Seth doesn't have 750 million followers, but the opportunities that Seth has from what he does and the things that he got to do outweighs probably the 3 of us put together.
Oh,
because he's been put in spots by huge corporations and companies because how genuine and how good you are at what you do. So like, you don't even need to be a number, which I think is fucking amazing, because all you got to do is wake up and just be Seth. You know what I mean? You don't need a tagline, nothing. Like, it's just, you're somebody that people want to fucking talk to. You know what I mean? So you should never compare yourself to a number.
It's ever. Crazy. It's crazy too to like think like I was at the Twisters premiere. Most of the people that were there were with like studios, and like it's weird to think that like I created this whole thing as my own brand, as my own like journalistic company. So it's like, it's kind of crazy like when you look at it that way, and like, but it's hard. Like in the back of your mind, you still think you're not doing good enough, or you're worthless. But it's like it. You got to take the time to be like, oh, you are doing great things. And it's hard to separate the two.
Yeah.
Okay, that was a lot more deeper than I was really thinking.
Sorry, Brian.
So no, it's good. I'm glad. Like, it gets people, it lets us know you better. So I had a lot more questions, but see the time's going on. So I'll do one slightly horror movie related to bring it all back to where we are. Do you guys have a TV show called Room 101?
No.
So basically, a celebrity will go on and he'll try and convince the host of things that he doesn't like. And then if the host agrees, he will like let them go into room 101, which is basically down into hell. So if it could be like, I hate getting stuck in traffic, and he has to convince the host to let it in. That makes sense?
No.
Not
at all.
What's the question?
I like the hell part.
Yeah. So if, for example, we were the hosts and there's something in a horror movie that bothers you, that you want to convince us to never be in horror movies ever again.
Okay.
We can throw that in hell. But like jump scares, for example, you just have to convince us why
the
thing you hate is now gone from horror movies.
Got it. Okay. Now I understand.
Gigi might be the only one that got it.
Yeah.
I got it.
Do you want to go for it?
Yeah.
Sure. Got it.
Yeah. So do I have to
Go.
say my thing?
Yep, let's
Yeah,
go.
you have to convince us why it's not good.
Um, I think one of the things that bothers me the most in horror movies is when well, okay, I shouldn't say like the most, but just one that came to my mind is when they have like a very simple, like if they're running away from like a killer or like they're in a really dangerous situation and they like trip or they like nick themselves or something. And then it's like, it's just like defeat, like they're immobilized. And I'm like, there is no way that your adrenaline wouldn't be pumping and you could fucking run on like a broken leg or something like that, or at least try. And they're just like, I'm just gonna give up and die. I hate that. It's like so infuriating because you're like, this wouldn't happen. This like you would not do this if you're running away for your like life.
I agree. So that can go to hell,
disagree.
right?
I disagree. 'Cause if I have to run, I'm like, you know what? It's not worth running. Just
Just kill me.
just do it. Make it quick. Come on. Hate running. Yeah.
Okay.
No, but no, I agree. So we would let that in room 101.
All right, letting it. I'm in room 101. Let's
Yeah.
go.
But you're not. Just that thing is. You
Oh,
don't want
Just
to go
shit.
to
that
hell.
thing is.
Oh, okay, shit. Okay, all right.
I love it.
Seth?
Listen, when you're in a haunted house and shit starts going like haywire and stuff's flying off the shelves, why do you decide to leave that house not until like the very end of the movie? If something is like going awry in this house and like I saw a ghost or something, I'm getting the fuck out of there. Like I'm not waiting, I'm not calling some expert, I'm just leaving. I'll leave all my shit behind. But like that is my biggest gripe is like why would you go back into the house or like look for what the issue, just leave, just get the fuck out of there.
I do think we would have a lot of very short horror movies if that
Yeah.
that happened.
Yeah.
It's like people make correct decisions. Like, oh, okay.
Let's make
go,
a smart-
you're safe.
But you got to think about the economy, man. Where would you
Yeah.
go? That's expensive. If you're like, well, I can't just break my lease. I can't just leave my mortgage. I don't know,
Sure.
I
man.
think that's why his house is so good because it's like,
Yeah,
okay,
so good.
you can't go
You
anywhere else.
literally
Like,
can't. You're a refugee. Yeah.
Yeah. So sorry, Seth. That sounds
Sorry,
like you're not-
Seth.
you're not in.
That's all I could think about. I guess I'm
Yeah.
going
Well,
to hell.
I think it pushes the narrative too. Like we understand, even if we dislike them, we understand why they're in movies to keep the story going, or they have a victim or whatever. Which brings me to mind, and I'm surprised that nobody like. There's been horror movies that have come out that have a little bit of flipping it on its head. Like a little bit of the setup that you think this is going to be the same thing as every fucking horror movie. Like I don't know if you've seen Haunting for the Hag. But there's a scene in Haunting for the Hag where something happens that is so abruptly not common in a fucking horror movie that
Yeah,
I
I
was
fucking
like,
love it.
I loved it. I was like,
Yeah.
holy fuck! Like I look, the cinematography, the acting, none of that even mattered.
The movie's
anymore because-
bad, but that
Right,
scene
dude.
is cinematic.
But they swung for the fences with this
Yeah.
great fucking idea, and that takes me to our favorite movie, The Strangers Chapter 1. And when he's holding that fucking shotgun, like, why? Just let him listen. It could have been the greatest movie ever if he would have just blew her fucking brains right out
Yes.
there, and then let us deal with that aftermath. That'll move the plot along. Like, I know
Yeah.
you're losing the main character, but like, that would be cool. And that's what I hate because these motherfuckers find these loaded weapons or something and they have their opportunity, but instead they want to go through this traumatic thing of why you tortured me and this and that. No, shoot the motherfucker, ask questions later. I'm like, I want to see that movie. I want to see that flipped on its head where, Game of Thrones style, everybody you love and shouldn't die is dead in the first episode type
red
shit. In a
wedding
horror-
type
yeah,
shit.
Yeah, I want to see that, like, but the horror version of that, like just constant jaw drops over and over and over again. Like it's eventually going to happen. But
See, I need that too. I love that because when they're just like, "Why? Just shoot the fucking person." That's like
Just
my
shoot
other.
'em.
Yeah, like what are you doing? What do you need to wait for? They're gonna get
Yeah.
up and kill you.
Yeah,
Just
like
fucking
they are
shoot 'em.
obviously attacking you. There is no moral dilemma where you're
Yeah.
like, well, I'm killing somebody. It's like they're literally trying to fucking kill you.
And even more so after you shoot them, your truck is fucking running and you could drive the fuck away and you
Yes.
did.
Yep.
So do I get to go to room 101?
I don't know. Yeah, people seemed on board with that. So yeah, we'll let you
Yeah. Yeah.
Guess I'm the only one going to hell.
in. No, it's just
what
we
about-
have to keep your part in horror movies. So
Oh,
it's not-
okay. So you're not going to hell.
Yeah, you're not going to hell, Seth. You're totally fine. You'll be the only one out of us that goes to heaven.
Yeah.
That's true. Do you get to say one, Brian?
Yeah, sure. So one thing that bothers me about horror is somebody gets shot or stabbed or anything like that, and it's like nothing has happened to them, or they pull the knife out, and it's just like
Oh yeah.
I don't know if like I remember I had surgery start this year, and I had to have like a tube inside me, and the nurse
Uh-huh.
had to come in when I was awake and pull the tube out, and I literally thought my heart was going to stop
Oh,
just getting out, and that's a nurse doing it. I was like, how
Yeah.
are you pulling knives and shit out of
Yes.
yourself? So I'm
Same.
like it's so like, and then they just wander off, and it's just like, oh, I've been rescued. I know Gigi's is kind of different to yours because we're talking about like the adrenaline, but
Yeah.
there's like a bullet wound is going to slow you down a
Yeah.
lot more than a twig
A
anyway.
lot.
dude.
Yeah, like that's it's going to hurt, and
You know
nobody
what I
really
think?
acts like it hurts.
Do you know what I think of every single time that happens in horror movies? I think of the Black Knight from Monty Python and the Holy Grail.
yeah.
Oh.
It's only a flesh wound. That's always what pops in my head. I'm like, look at this Black Knight motherfucker here got shot in the chest.
Oh
Yeah.
no,
It's
that's so
funny.
fair.
I was gonna say real quick, it's funny because the last Scream movie, that one dude got stabbed like 100 fucking times and somehow survives.
Yeah.
There's a lot of plot armor in Scream movies. Like those people
Oh,
would
yeah.
be dead a
Yeah.
lot of the
Knives are
time.
thick. It's
I
a
know.
thick
Thick.
knife.
Thick
Sweet.
knife. One thing that kind of regarding what you're saying though, Brian, this is what I thought you were gonna say because this is just like something that doesn't make sense to me in horror movies, but it's not something that like we should take away. But I just hate when they do it. Because what I thought you were gonna say is that like when they like stab them or when they like hit them or something, and immediately they start bleeding from the mouth. I'm like, that would not happen. Like they'll
Right.
be like, stab. Like it doesn't happen that quick. I'm like, what the fuck? I hate when that happens. I think it's just like, I don't know, it takes you out where you're like, okay.
Blah blah blah.
Yeah,
Okay, perfect. So do I get into room 101?
I
Yep.
guess.
Wow.
You get a pass because it's your question.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm at the gate anyway, so I let
I'm at the
people
gate.
I want. Yeah.
I have a head start.
Obviously, if you're listening to this and you understood the question, let us know your bugbears in horror movies, and I'll let you know if you get in or not as well.
You say bugbears?
Yeah, what the fuck is that?
Yeah.
We
Do you
say
guys even-
bugaboos. I mean,
That's
No,
fair.
That's a
I-
that's a different thing.
Wait.
I don't say
Nobody
that.
says
No,
bugaboo.
I don't say that, but people say that. Like, oh, that's a
This,
bugaboo.
this is a very different thing.
Bugbear. It's
Some
like an
bugbears
axe.
like
It's like an
bugbear.
axe
wound.
wound.
Yeah.
For those, okay, before we started recording, Chuck was telling us to watch this movie called Bloody Axe Wound, and Brian was like, ew, that's fucking gross. And we were like, wait, why? And he goes, axe wound over here means vagina. And we were like, that is not what it means in America.
I'm so happy that this made the fucking show. You have no
Yeah.
idea.
So now you guys are along for the inside joke with
Yeah.
us.
On that
Gonna start
disgusting
calling
note,
start calling it bloody axe.
Hope you could slam some axe wound tonight. Yeah,
Oh,
Jesus
God.
Christ.
So gross.
Gigi, do you want to take us out?
Yeah. Okay.
And yes, Justin, we did listen to all your criticism and still went off the fucking rails.
Okay, you can find us on all major podcast platforms that you're listening to right now. If you could please go and rate us a 5-star. But if you don't feel like it's 5-star, then just don't. And that just helps us with the algorithm. We would love to get out there. That'd be absolutely amazing. Same thing with our YouTube. If you could go like, subscribe, comment, that helps us a lot too. We're just really trying to get pushed out there to the algorithm. Also, if you want to comment on like any topic suggestions, we would absolutely love that. We're coming up with a little content calendar, but of course, we were always, it's just what we would like to talk about, but we would love to talk about different topics that you guys want us to talk about or certain movies you want us to talk about, anything like that. We don't have an episode coming out this Thursday because usually we do episodes if we have like a big theatrical release, but there wasn't really a lot of theatrical releases this week, and two, well, no, actually there was quite a few. It's just not a lot of us were able to go and watch them. But we will let you know when we do have a Thursday episode coming out, since there are a couple of theatrical releases coming out this month. But until then, we love you. Thank you so much for supporting us, and we will see you in the next episode. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.